Hi everyone, it's Julie from sproutsandstems.com here. Today's video is going to be care tips for peperomias. I've got my little collection of my little peperomias right here. And before we get into that, there's a huge storm cloud. Huge storm about to hit us. Got my little cozy girl right here. But before we get into the peperomia tips, please subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any new planty content. Give this video a like. Check out the links in the description to my Patreon or YouTube membership. They're both pretty much the same. There you'll get exclusive content, access to contact me with plant questions, and more nice perks for joining. Oh, I wanted to say that next week I'm probably not going to be posting because it's 4th of July week and I'm gonna take a little time off. So just so you know, my next video will be in 2 weeks from now. And now we'll get into the peperomia video. A little bit about peperomias before I get into the tips is that 2 things to keep in mind. One, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are epiphytes / lithophytes. Epiphytes means that they grow in like the cracks and crevices of trees and tree branches and kind of just like the loose debris that settles in. And lithophytes is basically the same thing, but for rocks. And then 2, many peperomias also have succulent-like leaves. They're not succulents, but succulent-like leaves and stems, so they hold a lot of water. So those 2 things I will bring back up throughout the video, but just wanted to say those right up front. I feel like peperomias come off seeming like they're really difficult plants, and I think that's because watering requirements sometimes trip people up. Most peperomias like to be on the drier side, not necessarily totally bone dry, but they like to dry out a good amount before watering again. And the ones that are more succulent-like, that would be Peperomia obtusifolia versus, say, this little ripple peperomia. This is not very succulent-like, but this one is. The ones that have more rigid, succulent-like, plump leaves are the ones that are more drought tolerant because those plump leaves store all the water. So overall, they can dry out a lot, but some like to be more dry than others. Now, the good thing is that peperomias, in my experience, tend to be pretty dramatic and will like basically tell you when they need water or when they're too dry. A lot of them will just kind of droop, but it'll be an obvious droop. So this one will definitely droop, and then also ones that have rigid leaves like this, they'll become super flexible when they're too dry. So these are still pretty, like if I were to squeeze this leaf right now, it would probably snap. But if it were too dry, I would be able to like bend it all the way around. And then some of them are even more dramatic. So this one doesn't do it because it's just a little cutting in water. But when I had the full size plant, it would be okay. And then all of a sudden it would just fall flat. The leaves and stems would just completely topple over and it would be totally flat. And then once you water it the next day, it's all perky again. So I have found that whether it's like really dramatic or just a little bit dramatic, that peperomias tend to tell you when they need water, which is helpful. Now, another thing is that peperomias have very teeny tiny shallow root systems, and they also like to be root bound and cozy in their pots. So they can go a very, very, very long time not being repotted. So they're great plants if you just need something that is pretty low maintenance. For the most part, you want to just like put it somewhere and ignore it forever. Never say never, but you will basically never have to repot them. Regarding potting and potting mix, since they're epiphytes and lithophytes and they grow in very loose debris, be sure to use a loose and well-draining, well-aerated potting mix. So that can just be half soil, half potting mix, and then half perlite. You can also throw in some orchid bark in there, but just something really loose so they're just kind of like chilling there. They don't need to be like super tight packed in there, but they're just kind of like chilling. Regarding light, they're pretty okay in like a moderate amount of light. They don't necessarily need bright indirect light, but if you have something like this with lots of variegation, then that does need bright indirect light in order to keep this variegation. And even if it doesn't get bright indirect light, it'll still grow just fine. It'll just revert to like you can kind of see this leaf is like majority dark green. It'll just revert to all green instead of variegated, but it'll still be a healthy plant. It just won't look variegated. But other than that, they're pretty good in a moderate amount of light, so you don't necessarily need to have a bright sunny window for peperomias. Now, another thing I was going to mention, I don't have any flower spikes on these plants, but I was going to mention that peperomias do put out flower spikes relatively easily compared to a lot of other houseplants. And I've seen people wondering, what are those weird spiky things coming out of their plants? What does it mean? But it's basically just a little like green, light green, spiky thing sticking out of the plant. It's covered in teeny tiny little flowers. And that means that you're doing a good job with your plant because your plant is happy and wants to make more of itself. So it's absolutely nothing to worry about. If anything, it's a good thing, but they're not very attractive. They're just kind of like there. So you can always cut them off just at the base of their stem, and that way it'll save all of that energy for the beautiful leaves. So yeah, so even though peperomias, their care can be a little tricky to get the hang of at first, they are pretty good low maintenance plants, especially the more drought tolerant, more succulent species. So this is Peperomia obtusifolia variegata. This is red ripple peperomia, and I used to have a large plant that I just took a little cutting from, and then this just has some string of hearts in there as well, and this is growing in water. So I'll give you a good look at that. And then this is Peperomia verticillata. It's a red twist, and I think the red twist is a hybrid of some sort, but I'm not totally 100% sure. But this one I got at the grocery store. Actually, I got both of these at the grocery store about, I don't know, a few months ago, but this one seems to be very happy. So yeah, it's got the cutesy red undersides. So that is it for today's Peperomia care tips. There they are. Come on, guys, get in here. That is it for today's Peperomia care tips. Please give this video a like if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any new planty content from me. Check out my YouTube membership or Patreon. Both are linked in the description for more exclusive content and as a way to support my channel if you'd like to do that. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks because I'm taking a little break next week. So if you're in the US, have a nice 4th of July holiday, and I'll see you soon.